Welcome to the Successful Life Podcast. I am your host, Corey Barrier, and I am here with Trevor and Kale. They are the real business owners, is that right?
Real business owners on Instagram. We have a podcast as well, Real Business Owners on iTunes, Spotify, anywhere basically, you can listen to a podcast as well as on Facebook. It's just under Real Business Owners. So
very cool. All right. So go ahead.
Able to find us under that name.
Awesome. So we were just talking. Now I completely.
Well, we were talking about, side hustles initially, just as an employee, right? When you're initially an employee and you're trying to think of, things to do for yourself. A lot of the things that you do start out as a side hustle, right? And then you kind of slowly make that transition over to entrepreneurship full time. And you and Kale were talking about how he got fired from one of his jobs because he had a side hustle. And the business owner said, look, you're not in 100%, then you're not in at all. See you later. Basically, probably was a moment of, fear, loss, this, that, the other, that ended up turning into, one of the best moments probably of his life that reshifted some things.
My old boss, I looked up to him a lot. So I was like, I was pretty heartbroken. I was like, man, I don't get to work with my dudes no more because we had a pretty cool sales team going. But he did tell me, he said, you'll probably thank me one day, but I'm kicking you off the fence. Those were his exact words. Kicking you off the fence, dude, you're out. Damn. You'll probably thank me one day.
What's so interesting about that is I was my boss's, I was his right-hand man. I was the number one. I was the number one. I was a trainer. So, and I was number one in our whole company, and it was probably 10 gyms. It was a 10 gym chain. And excluding 2 months out of the whole 5-ish years I was there, I was the top salesperson. So I was his guy. We were tight. I was probably the only dude that was tight with him. I knew more about him than anybody did. And I think, honestly, it was really hard for him to do what he did. And I think if it would have trickled through him first, I would not have gotten fired. But like you, it was a moment of, like you said, heartbreak. It was a moment of fear for sure. Totally. But it was time for me to make a leap that I would have never made if they hadn't fired me.
Yep.
Yeah.
No,
well, dude, it was scary, man, because I wasn't making any money off my side hustle yet. It was all going back into the business, and then I just lost $130,000 to $150,000 income. Because that's about what I made was 130, 150, right around there. Yeah. And it was like I had just bought a house, moved my family in, a bigger house, had all these new lifestyle expenses. And it was like, oh shit, what am I going to do? So that's actually where we started the business, man, was in the basement of my house. It was unfinished. We just had, walls framed up, but no sheetrock. So we were hanging carpet up around our computer desk to kind of buffer the sound so we could call our clients.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And so you guys didn't start together.
No. Yeah. We actually go way back to we worked at a company in sales together years before we kind of went different paths. He went to work for a guy up in Salt Lake City. I went to work for a guy down here in St. George, the tax and accounting company. And then it worked out to where he came back to work for our company, my other partner, Jeremy. And man, Trev's just really good with people, and, he's a great manager, a leader, great sales guy. And so it got to the point where I could see he's ready to do his own thing. You know what I mean? He's ready to go on and do his own thing. So I was like, man, we should either figure out how to partner with Trevor or he's going to go do his own thing.
Yeah. So. Kel was the boss that didn't come and kick me off the fence.
He put you on the fence.
I didn't quite have a side hustle yet, but I had told him previous with one of my other friends, with Garrett. I went to, I was honest with him. I, straight up and said, hey, dude, we're going to probably end up doing something for ourselves or whatever, me and one of my buddies. And, I have a past of drug addiction, very bad drug addiction.
Are you kidding me?
So I was a heroin addict with a needle in my arm every day for about 3 to 4 years. And I had one of my good buddies that we both got clean, but so we started making money again in sales, and I was working for Kel, and
You were clean that whole time you worked.
I was clean the whole time when I was working for Kale. So after I got clean, I got back into sales and got back into the game, right? And so did my buddy. He ended up relapsing and going back to some of that stuff. And when I found out about that, I then went back to Kel and said, dude, it's not happening. I'm not going to go into business with somebody that's using drugs because that's just not going to end well. Right. So I kind of recommitted to Kel and saying that's off of the table. I'm not going to do anything with him at this point in time. And so I don't know if it was just that conversation that I was going to do something. And then years later, some stuff happened with inside of the company that I was working for that he owned, where it kind of, there was another partner that took it down a path that, you know, where it lost a couple $100,000 one year. There was no money left in the account. There was 66 grand in credit card debt. There was really nothing. And there was employees that needed to be paid. And, you know, these guys came to me and, you know, I talked to them because I was kind of running it a little bit at that point, and we were trying to figure out how to salvage the company and how to make this thing work. And, you know, I told them I'd come in with money, you know, and I want to be able to run it a certain way. And there was an outside partner that didn't agree with some certain things. So they said, okay, you're gone, Trevor, you're in. And then I took over that company. I don't know if it was 2011 or 2012, something like that. And it was like a $700,000 turnaround the first year that I took it over. And then since then, we've started business after business after business. Kel has his strengths. He's great at networking and nurturing relationships, you know, for the long haul. A lot of the times I like to squeeze the juice out of a relationship a little too soon. And if it doesn't show value, I'm like, you know, fuck that. Let's go. Let's move on to the next, you know. And I'm like, why are you still talking to this dude or whatever? And then like 8 months later, he ends up being like a lead source for us or something. And Kel looks like a genius and I look like an asshole. But
so the reason you got the reaction that you got from me when you said that, and I fucking kid you not, I swear to God, there might be one person in the last 20 people I've interviewed that did not have that exact, because I'm sober 10 years. I had no idea that you had anything, that you had any kind of past. Everybody I think one person is the only person that I've talked to that has not had some kind of fucking addiction or some kind of alcohol or something, which that's why it blew my mind when you said that, because I had absolutely no idea.
Yeah. I posted about it a little bit, not a whole lot, you know, because I didn't want to make Real Business Owners just about me and my past, right? Sure. I'm just trying to take the lessons that we've learned, you know, over the years and give it to people so that maybe they can, you know, learn from our mistakes rather than going down some of those same paths. But
we want people to know, man, like you really can be anything, dude, no matter where you come from, you know, in this country, in the, you know, the economy that we have, and even in a different economy that we have here in America anyway, like, dude, you can start anywhere and end up on top, man. Like, not that we're on top, we've reached some great levels of success. We're nowhere near where we want to be, but you know, shit, man, I had my first kid in high school, you know, started pushing freaking grocery carts at a grocery store with a broken arm because I broke my arm snowboarding and I had a pregnant girlfriend. I dropped out of high school just to push grocery carts and, you know, feed my kid. And he comes from a drug addiction. And, you know, man, it's like, so that's really what Real Business Owners is, man. Like, we don't care where you come from. It's a matter, where are you going? And
there's really no excuse. Like,
we want to help people get the information they need to get there. If we could do it, they can do it. You know, it's so true.
Like, if you grew up poor, check, we're there. Bad grades in high school or in school, check, that's us. A drug addiction, that's me. Kid in high school, that's him. Like, what's your excuse? Tell me an excuse of why you can't be successful so that we can just shit on it, because there is no excuse. There's no valid excuse anyways. It might be an excuse to make yourself feel better about why you're not where you want to be so that you can give yourself that warm fuzzy. Well, I'm not there because of, you know, they're special or they're this or that. They like to label people as something that they're not to make themselves feel better about where they're at.
Victim.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we just don't play that game.
Dude, 100%. It's. I feel like people play the victim because either they're lazy or the list could go on for days. Yeah. The excuses, like you said, that people give, and You're right. There's absolutely, and look, I'll be the first to tell you, 2 months ago, so I lost my hormone replacement clinic in October of 2018. And I'll give you just the short scenario of that. I played owner, and I was not a team player. I thought I was a team player, but I was not a team player. That was the biggest reason that the business went south. The
In terms of culture, you couldn't keep up the culture, or what?
So I went into it not knowing a whole lot about testosterone and growth hormone. I didn't realize the complexity of it. Mm. And so I opened this clinic with a guy that has a third grade education, but made all of his money in construction. So I invested what I had. I sold my personal training business, and he went into it as the silent investor, which, as you probably know, nobody is ever fucking silent.
Yeah, I was just going to say, usually the investors are the most noisy. They want to know where their money's at, what's going on. They want reports on a weekly, if not daily basis, just to feel good about where their money is.
Exactly. So I basically had to do everything. I had to build it from the ground up. I mean, I had a little bit of help from a guy that we paid, but not enough help to get started, really. And so I had to go and learn all this shit as we were going. And I had a nurse practitioner or a PA working for me at all times because they had to write the script.
Of course.
And then I had a nurse. And the problem is, like, I could train all the doctors were trainable, believe it or not. The nurse, the licensed practical nurse, she thought she knew everything. So it made me question what I was doing because I was new as shit, and I thought I knew this was I was going off what I was told. So then I was told, well, this is not right. Well, now I've got a conflict because I think that I'm right because that's what I've been told. But then there's laws that say that maybe I'm not right. Long story short, I didn't know enough to be a leader, if that makes sense. And so I tried my best, but the second part of the story is my partner started fucking the girl that I fired. I didn't know. I had absolutely no idea. So I didn't even find this out until January of 2019. So we went through the lawsuit and all kinds of shit to find out. His wife calls me and she's like, hey, what do you know about what's her name? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? She said, oh, well, your partner's been fucking her for the last X number of months. And I'm like, what? And so what really happened, in addition to my shitty leadership skills, is this girl got in his ear and basically talked her way back in and talked me out.
Really?
Yeah, dude. And then got in and ran up. I bet you she spent $500,000 in a matter of.
This is a lesson to all women listening. You have more power than you realize.
Yeah, dude.
Take over companies. Take over the world,
And break up a marriage. She kept her marriage, even though he knew, which I don't understand that, but whatever. And so it was a tough time for me over for the last X number of months. Like I'm figuring out I was in a mild depression. I mean, I kept my head up, but it wasn't easy because I couldn't quite figure out what the fuck it was. I'd sold my other business and, personal training. I didn't want to do that anymore. And two, to open another hormone replacement clinic, I was working with a larger company out in Vegas. They kind of dropped the ball. So it's been one thing after another. It's all been things that have gotten me to this place here, really, is what has happened. But that dark hallway between the door closing and the door opening is pretty fucking dark sometimes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And until I went to Arte Live in St. Louis, and things changed. for
you
me.
You talking about the one just this year or last year?
Just like 2 months ago, less than 2 months ago.
Okay.
And I met a guy as I was getting ready to leave, the guy that I interviewed first on my podcast, Ryan. And I asked him, I said, this mic's been sitting here 3 months prior to this, by the way, which I didn't even turn it on because I didn't know what the fuck, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And that was what I told myself. Well, you don't know what the hell you're doing, so just wait. Well, so I put myself in a position where I didn't have any choice but to learn because I got him to commit that he would be my first person. Well, at this point, I'm not going to let him down. And I'm not going to look stupid. So I had to grind my ass off to figure out how to even start a damn podcast. And so here we are, and I've interviewed a lot of fucking cool ass people. And ironically, it's not been that hard getting people to come on. And I've had amazing conversations with every single person, in-depth conversations about personal shit, which makes I feel like I'm in the right spot. Does that make sense?
Well, the reality is at one point when you were in that dark hallway, you thought you were alone and nobody else knows what you feel like, because when you're in a dark place, you do feel alone and you feel like nobody understands you. But anybody in the entrepreneur space, they all understand each other because the rules of the game are the same for everybody. Everybody will go through dark periods of time and they will feel alone and scared and nervous, excited. I mean, you're going to have a whole roller coaster of emotions in this entrepreneurship game. And when you get on the phone with people and you realize a lot of them have had past drug addictions or past problems, or no, they weren't all born rich. They don't have parents that have money that they've carved their own way in the world. And they're hardened because of some of those dark times that they've gone through, not because they didn't go through hard times. The fact is, that's what created the success, is having to learn how to deal with the shit that molds you into who you need to be so that you can pop out the other side. And so we're all cut from the same cloth. Nobody's getting special treatment in this business game. Business doesn't give a shit who you are, what your age is, what your color is, how much you weigh. It's going to put you through the same shit, whether it's me, whether it's Kale, whether it's you. It doesn't matter. It's not prejudiced against anybody. You will equally go through dark times, high times, low, whatever, right? That's just a business game that we all chose to play. But, it's those times right there. That's one of the reasons why Real Business Owner exists, is because there's many times that I get DMs or, we get comments of people stating like, man, like this is exactly what I needed to hear, because we've been through dark times. We've struggled as entrepreneurs. They might see that we have success now, but it's based upon a lot of struggle. The success is always built on struggle.
And we'll still have it.
Guaranteed.
It's, we listen to podcasts. We go on people's podcasts. People come on podcasts because we can all learn from each other. Yeah. And it's like, that's what's cool about this podcast. But dude, I think, you're on the right track, man. Like, you're taking accountability. You're like, dude, I thought I was a good team player, but I wasn't. I had a lot to learn. I thought I knew about hormones, but I didn't. Like, you're taking full accountability, which is, dude, that's a huge step, man.
That's a big pill to swallow.
You're right. It shifted you to a new direction to where now you're doing what you're doing now and going even further than you did with your last business venture. So I think that's cool, man. The accountability, I think, is the biggest part of that.
I'll tell you what catapulted that part really is, I went to go see Tony Robbins in November of 2018, and he said, if one book, if you need to read is Think and Grow Rich, which I know both of you have read that book, or at least I would imagine you have.
Think and Grow Rich, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so, I came home and I went through that book 3 times. And one of the things that really stuck out is that, it was basically if anything goes wrong and it's your business, it's your fucking fault.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it hit me hard because it really was my fault. I didn't do enough research before I got into it. And I got excited, and there's a whole list of shit that I would not do again.
Yeah. The only time that you won't accept fault is if your ego's too big. Because the only thing that you're protecting by not accepting fault is your ego. right? The last thing that you want to do is have a chink in your armor, because it hurts. It hurts to admit that you were wrong. But if you stripped away the ego in general, it wouldn't hurt at all. So in a lot of cases, your ego could serve you. And then in a lot of cases, your ego works against you. So I'm a firm believer that some of our strengths that we have in specific scenarios are also our weakness, right? So if I'm very confident and have a large ego and I'm a sales guy, I might make a ton of money in sales, but that might not serve me over here in a relationship, because I might not ever be able to admit that I'm wrong because my ego's, you see what I'm saying? So
yeah.
Certain areas, your strengths can serve you. You need to figure out where your strengths serve you and where they could ultimately hurt you, because an ego inside of a relationship will probably be the biggest detriment to the relationship, because you just never want to be wrong, because that will ultimately hurt your ego. Therefore, you're going to fight your way out of a potential good relationship because you're trying to protect the ego, right? But over here, it serves you very well. So I'm a big believer that, your strengths is in certain scenarios are also your biggest weakness if you're not careful. But it takes an individual that removes themselves from the ego to be able to accept what you accepted, and to really look at yourself and say, you know what, shit, that was on me. I could have done a lot of things better. And once you remove the ego from the scenario, you can learn those lessons much quicker, right? Quit trying to protect yourself and validate, oh, well, that happened because of this. No, it happened because of you. Yeah. You allowed any of those scenarios or circumstances into your life because you didn't have to do that. So it really does all boil down to me. It boils down to Kel. It boils down to you. Whatever our scenario is, as long as we take ownership of it, then that gives us the control back.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So if it's a negative scenario and you say, no, that's because of this, that's basically you admitting that your life is completely out of control and you have no control over the outcome, which is not a good position to be in. But once you admit fault and guilt, that puts you back in the driver's seat where you have full control, where you can now steer it into a positive.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'll tell you another thing too, doing this podcast, like, I don't know how to monetize a fucking podcast. I have absolutely no idea. But I didn't start it for that reason. And you all know this because I know you know this because just sitting here talking to you for the brief time I have, you know that if you go into something with a good intent and not chasing the fucking money, like what, in some shape, form, or fashion, it'll all come back around as long as you're not doing it for that reason. And so I'm really not doing this for that reason, but the clinic, different ballgame. All I was focused on was the money.
So here's the deal. You can do one of two things. You can either chase money or you can attract money. And in regards to attracting money, is starting a podcast an ability to attract money? Yes, so if you're doing all the right things on a day-to-day basis, that's not chasing money, that's attracting money.
Agreed.
If you're writing down things you're grateful for, if you have goals, if you're showing up on a day-to-day basis, if you're giving it consistency, those are all traits of attracting success. Starting a podcast, and forcing yourself just to, figure it out, that's a decision that ultimately just attracts success. You're not chasing the money. You're not doing it for that reason. So the real question is what people need to do is sit back and ask themselves, am I chasing money in this scenario, or am I making a decision that ultimately leads to money wanting to come to me, right? And being an individual of value. So you're trying to put out information that's valuable to other people. And that's a trait where you're potentially attracting money eventually to you. And I'm a firm believer that you're either chasing or attracting. Real business owners, that just attracts money.
Sure.
Like we're not chasing, we're just giving. And we're starting to see just barely more so the windfall of, people reaching out to us and saying, hey man, I know you guys own Easier Accounting. We'd love for you guys to do our bookkeeping, our taxes, or can I get a quote from you? And we're not really even asking anybody for that. I just made a video yesterday that will drop here in a few days, where we'll actually present our first offer that we've ever presented on Real Business Owners in the 8 or 9 months that we've had it. and we're still getting business out of it. That's the difference of chasing money versus attracting it. You know?
That's awesome. So I'm so glad you just went through all that, because this is a perfect example. So I have a friend that's starting, and I don't know the ins and outs and legalities of the cannabis business. Like, I help broker some CBD products, some hemp.
Yeah.
But that's not where I'm going with that. Where I'm going with this is I have a friend in California that is heavily into cannabis, and he is a fucking great dude.
Yeah.
And he's putting together, I guess, for the lack of better words, like, it's basically a co-op, from what I understand. Whatever, and I kind of understand what a co-op is, where everybody comes together.
Yeah.
And I can't really describe it because I don't understand exactly, but I do know this. One thing he is looking for is somebody to do the taxes for hundreds of people. Would be a huge project. And so I'm happy to set you guys up with him, have a conversation. Worst case scenario, you just have a fucking conversation, me a cool dude. But it could be a great opportunity.
No, we'd love that. See?
Yeah.
So we
perfect example.
We said yes to being on a podcast, saying yes. We didn't expect to get anything out of this podcast. We were just wanting to give our time and maybe give information that could benefit other people. And then now you're sitting there saying, well, hey, I know somebody that might be able to benefit from some of the stuff that's just, again, we're not chasing it.
Sure. No, you're
all
exactly
the right decisions that ultimately attract the success.
For sure.
Talked about that in some of our episodes too, man. Yeah. Like, every time we have chased a quick buck,
it always
sounds like easy money. Dude, it's every time we gotten burned. Like, we've jumped into some things that were very, very pricey, mistakes in the long run, but we're just like, man, that's the pattern. Every time we chase the quick buck.
Yeah.
So, like, give me an example. What is an example where you were like?
We've got friends making millions of dollars selling nutraceuticals, man, like skin creams and diet pills and stuff all over the internet. And so we drop $250,000 into running our own offer. But these guys know, they're experts. They know exactly what to do, this, that, the other. And we jump into it, man. And we're making sales, but there was all these hands in the pot just pulling money out. And everything, man, from CRMs to traffic to everything. Then we find out terms and conditions weren't even written properly because we're ignorant to that whole compliance side of that business. And next thing you know, we're like, this thing's not actually what we thought it was. We're going to shut it down.
Yeah.
So we walked away from, I mean, we were able to bill some of the money back out, but we walked away from well over
200,000.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I mean,
so how was your marketing? Okay. So I owned a company called PharmaFit Science, and we have a really close friend that is a part owner of High Tech Pharmaceuticals. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's the largest manufacturer of nutraceuticals in the whole fucking world.
Right.
Anyway, it's huge. And so we're like, all right, we've got, this guy owns half of it. This is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Right.
We set everything up, and then we started putting stuff out on Facebook, flagged. Put stuff out on Facebook, flagged. I mean, and then the next, I look over, and the same fucking product
is being marketed
by a different company. It's because of the money. But and we couldn't figure it out.
And then all of a sudden, MasterCard's got all these new regulations, and Visa's got all these new regulations, and we're like, whoa, what's going on, And then these guys are like, dude, we don't know. It's even out of our control, and they're supposedly the experts that are our partners or that we hired. And, at the end of the day, it was like, well, we see our buddies all making millions of dollars at this industry. They tell us how easy it is. They're going to guide us. Seemed like a no-brainer. We chased the quick, easy buck.
Yeah.
Dude, money right out the window.
Yeah.
Nice tax write-off what we got out of that. So.
No shit.
Me and Kale and one of our other partners each put in $75,000 of our personal money, and it's just gone. Yeah. So we haven't seen a dime back from it. So, but we chose to walk away after we found some things out that we really didn't like about the industry in general in terms of what Kel said.
The way they're marketing. And
the terms and conditions weren't properly outlined. There was just certain things that we just didn't vibe with. And by the time we got so deep into it, we could have said, let's salvage it and try to pull the money back out and write it out for the next 6 months and then shut it down. Or we can just shut it down now and just walk away from, you know, $225,000, which is basically what we did. We'll be lucky to get, you know, 40 grand back, if that. Right now there's an account sitting there with like 10 G's in it at this point. Yeah. So we're $215,000 out right now. So,
well, you know,
but that was all just trying to chase quick money.
Right.
Rather than building a real business that takes 3 to 5 years to build, you know, and eat shit for the first 3 years, then have it break even, start making some money after 2 or 3 years. The real money you start making, you know, 4 or 5 years deep into a business. And everybody goes into, you know, a startup with all the enthusiasm that they're going to make a bunch of money year one. And then as they start realizing that shit just doesn't happen like that, that really thins the herd a lot the first year or two, and separates the pack of who really wants it and who just thought it would be cool to have, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. But to your point about the money that you lost, so my guy, my old partner, business partner, he is still throwing money at that fucking business, dude. I mean, we were at least, when I walked away, we were probably $500,000 in debt. And the girl drug another $500,000 in debt. There's no tell. It's like a game. It's like somebody sitting at the poker table.
I was just gonna say gambling,
fucking losing, dude. And it's like can't walk away. You're so deep now.
Yeah. That it's like, what's another couple $100,000? Because if I'm that close to making it work, you're chasing. That's drug addict mentality, right? You're just chasing. And when you talked about, you know, a lot of people that you've interviewed that's had addiction problems, I think every entrepreneur has an addiction problem. It's whether or not they've tried drugs. That's the only thing, right? They just, you know, Kale's never really had addiction problems, but he's also never been an individual because he had a child so young. He never got wrapped up into the party scene where that whole mix was there, because an entrepreneur has to have an addictive personality. You have to be willing to chase that money and keep showing up day after day. You're an absolute idiot for showing up day after day and you're not making any money and you're pounding your head against the wall. That's you're addicted to the chase. You're addicted to wanting to be successful. It's just a matter of removing a negative addiction and adding something positive and focusing those addictive energies down a path that could change your life for the better, not the worse, right? So I'm not surprised by that at all. Addicts are some of the most resourceful people on the planet. They wake up broke every single morning, but they figure out a way to get what they need to get by the end of every single day, and then they do it again and again and again. So if you use that same resourcefulness into something positive, like starting a business, making those extra phone calls, communicating with this person or that person, creating the contacts that you need to be successful, chasing that rather than chasing a high is a little bit different, right? So
and it feels better. It feels so much better to, you know, to have this conversation with you guys. And if it helps one person, then it was worth the time that we've spent together. And well, of course, and I'm going to hook you up with the guy, which who the fuck knows what that may do, but but the point is like, you know, I think as entrepreneurs, we do chase the feeling of it is a high when you get that win, or when you see something, just a little bit of light in that tunnel. Like for me, and that shift, I knew, and I still know, there's something so much bigger out there for me, and I know that I'm working towards that. I can't get caught up in the how. Because if I do, I'll fake myself right out of it. And so, you know, I just have to keep thinking with that mindset and keep busting my ass and things are going to fucking work out.
Well, that's why, you know, I mean, why the hell is Elon Musk still trying to make money?
Good point.
He doesn't need it. He's addicted to that next, you know what I mean? He's chasing that next high, that next thing. Same with Ed Milet or anybody that's worth billions. They don't need to work anymore. Why the hell is Mark Zuckerberg still on the board or doing this? Like they don't need it. They're addicted. There's some sort of addictive personality that makes them show up every single day and chase that new level, whatever that new level is. For somebody making 50 grand a year, maybe it's the 6-figure mark that they've never touched.
Right.
Somebody that's made 6 figures, maybe they want to make $500,000 or $1 million or 10 million. You know, everybody, by the time you start getting up into those certain levels, you're going to have those people that, you know, how many people have we seen make 100 grand a year or 150 grand a year, and then they kind of just, they put themselves on autopilot or cruise control because they find a level of comfort. True addicts, right, or successful people, they just never find comfort. They're always, their comfort is in the chase. I mean, let's be real, right? Like there's something comfortable about chaos to an addict, right? And so you create chaos. Even if you're at $1 million level and you're trying to get a 10 million, there's so much chaos between making $1 million and 10 million. I mean, how much crazier is times right now versus what it was 2 or 3 years ago, because we're at a completely different level. And we already know, we've been talking, we're like, dude, this next year is going to be fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, because we're going from here to try to chase, you just eventually get comfortable in the chaos.
No, you're right.
And that's really where you find things most rewarding, because if you sit back in comfort and say, you know what, I did a good ass job, I have a ton of money, then what?
Right. Exactly.
What, you're going to sit on a lazy boy and just slowly die? You know what I mean? And fade out of the universe and just age and not accomplish anything. So you're addicted to chaos and accomplishment. I think entrepreneurs are. So.
I agree. It's funny. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I will catch myself if things are just normal and I'm driving down the road, I need the chaos so much that I'll just drive 100 miles an hour just so I can feel like I'm having a little bit of chaos.
Yeah.
No apparent reason.
You got to shake things up. You're like, damn, let's step on it for a second.
Right.
You know, there's something. You look around, see if there's any cops. It's just the outlaw mentality. Us entrepreneurs are kind of outlaws. You know.
Yeah, for sure.
Day, though. So that's funny.
So what do you guys have planned? Do you guys do stuff for people on Thanksgiving or Christmas? Or, I mean, a lot of people, like for me last year, and I'm doing it again this year, we fed one family last year. We cooked their food and took it to them anonymously. And I'm not going to lie to you, dude, that was probably one of the best feelings I've ever had in my life. Yeah. And we're going to do it again this year, but we're not cooking the food. We're taking it and letting them cook it.
Yeah.
And I feel slightly indifferent about that because I don't feel like I put in the work to get the feeling that I'm chasing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
My wife loves to do that, and I love being a part of it. So I kind of let her do that, man. Like we've brought Christmas to families and meals to families and done that, and we love that. Right now, I'm focused on doing stuff for our employees, man. Like,
it's the same difference though. Same difference.
Like our employees, man. I mean, we wouldn't have what we have without them. Like we're a team, you know? So my focus lately has just been on, okay, what am I going to do to recognize this guy? And what are we going to do for our company party? And what are we going to do for bonuses this year? And like, I want to truly like make people feel like I want them to feel our gratitude, you know, the people that are here with us, a part of our team. But outside of work, I do love being a part of that stuff too, man. But my wife usually lines that stuff up, to be honest.
I don't know what so I got a text last night. So during Thanksgiving, our family, you know, as we all get together, they call them blessing bags. So where you put together like beanies, gloves, deodorant, some little bit of food, snacks, basically where you get one of the big, huge Ziplocs and you fill it up with just almost supplies. And then everybody will keep kind of 2 in their cars for the next 2 people that they see struggling on the street. Then they just hand out that little bag of gloves and beanies and socks and, you know.
That's actually really cool. A friend of mine used to put I call it coupons. I don't know if that's how you fucking pronounce it, but that's what I call it. But so that's what he would do. He would take random shit, like he would take, you know, crackers and whatever, just like I said, snack shit, and then he would put like McDonald's coupons, like if it was for a free whatever burger,
Big Mac or whatever.
But I thought it was a pretty interesting idea. Last year we went around and tried to. I got this idea after we did the Thanksgiving thing because of the, you know, it did make me feel really good. I was like, well, let's go and we'll hand out blankets to the people that are, you know, standing on the side of the road asking for money. They did not want the fucking blankets. I
No.
couldn't give them away.
Yeah.
No, we're good. Every motherfucking one of them.
They're like, no, I'm good. I got a blanket at home.
Right.
So don't just give me the money. Like I need to keep my lights on. You know, like,
right.
Asshole. You know, go get a regular ass job then.
Right.
You know?
But where do you live, Corey?
I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. Where are you guys?
St. George, Utah.
Okay, cool.
We're about an hour and 20 minutes outside of Vegas. So
okay.
We're in the southern part of Utah, share a lot of the same desert heat as Arizona and Nevada right there. So
very cool.
I
lived in Vegas for a year.
You did?
Long time ago.
Same heat.
You know, that I-15, man, you just go north and you run right into our town. Yep. But we don't got a ton of like homeless or panhandlers in our town. We got to go to Salt Lake or Las Vegas if we want to see those.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we have I mean, it's a smaller city that doesn't have all of the homeless problems or anything like that. So we're just kind of the pass-through city in between Vegas and Salt Lake. So
that makes sense. Yeah, I would not imagine being homeless in a desert would be. I would probably choose somewhere else.
Well, in the wintertime, it's not bad because at least it's not snowy. But
that's true.
Mid-July, when it's 115 degrees, then you're probably just looking for shade, you know?
Dude, yeah.
Homeless snowbirds, man. You just go to
Oh, right.
Homeless snowbirds. Yeah.
That is truly funny.
I got my winter home and my winter bridge and my summer bridge.
Can you imagine? I mean, I don't know if either one of you guys have ever been homeless. I've never slept under a bridge, but God, I tell you right now, it came close before I got sober. That's for damn sure.
Same. Yeah, that's.
So you really quick, and we'll wrap up in a moment. But so you did heroin. I mean, the percentages of even people in AA to the success rate is very small, 7 to 8%. Yeah. Heroin addicts are like next to fucking no percent.
Yeah.
Am I right about that? It's really, really low.
Yeah, it's very, very low. I still have still know people that struggle with it that I used to hang out with, and the individual that I was talking about in the beginning of our conversation has since passed away. One of my good buddies, it was about 1.5 years ago. I had to speak at his funeral because of he lost his life to addiction. He fell asleep and didn't wake up. I don't know what he took or anything like that. By that point, he would hide it from me, right? He wouldn't talk about that. I would try to say, "Hey, how you doing?" He's like, "I still got my problems, no big deal." And then he would kind of skirt the subject. But it's a very, 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 very difficult thing to get away from. Most people definitely relapse because even if it's bad, it's still familiar to them, right? So when we have a bad scenario and we're sober, it's like we don't know how to deal with these feelings. But as an addict, they can always go back to, even if it's a bad place, at least they're familiar with it. There's something comfortable about something being familiar, even if it is negative.
Sure.
From the outside looking in, because I've watched this journey from the outside, it comes down to a choice, man. Like, these guys choose to stay in that, whatever serves them, they choose to stay in that. Trevor found something bigger than him that kept him from wanting to go back to that. So he makes choices every day to be a better person for his loved ones, his family, his child. I mean, he met his wife working at this company before he was an owner, and had a child with her. And I've watched him go from making a decision to say, okay, it's my choice to be better for them, right? He found something bigger than him to choose a new habit, choose a new life. Like his addiction now is is entrepreneurship. It's not heroin, and that's better for him and his family. And so it just comes down to a choice, man. Like, people are choosing things they're staying in that addiction because it serves them somehow, and they haven't found something bigger than them to make choices to go a different direction. And that's just my outside perception. I've never been addicted to heroin. I mean, I think we all have our addictions in some fashion,
some sort of high.
So I just, but I've never had that addiction with heroin. But I've watched Trevor, dude. When we've gone to on trips and out to Vegas with friends and all this stuff for a long time, very long time. Trev wouldn't come. He's like, no, I don't like putting myself in the position to be in Vegas, man. I just don't even like that idea. I don't even want to flirt with that. And so he wouldn't come, you know, and dude, there's peer pressure there too. Like, come on, man, we're just going to go and gamble a little bit, and we're not going to go hit some side streets looking for drugs. Come on, bro. Nope. I don't even want to put myself in that position. And it's like, okay, cool. We got to respect that. And he stayed strong in that choice because he has that bigger reason, him, his family, his children, the business, like, you know what I mean? So it comes down to choice.
Trust me, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, you know, you gotta think about. I mean, Vegas is like, to me, early in sobriety, that's a fucking no-brainer. Like, there's no chance in hell I would. I haven't been back to Vegas since I moved away, but I especially would not have gone to Vegas early in sobriety. Now, I don't think it would matter whatsoever because I just choose not to drink, and or do anything else for that matter. Yeah, dude. Yeah, you gotta stay away from that shit when you're first starting out for sure. And you've been sober how long?
12 years in July.
Sweet. Okay. So I just hit 10 in August.
Okay. Cool.
So,
man.
yeah, man.
Congrats.
Absolutely. Yeah, dude. Same to you, man. That's awesome.
I see a lot of people celebrate that stuff. They post about it. Hey, I've got 8 years clean or whatever, and everyone congratulates them. And I'm like, what about all the people that never tried it? You know, like, do they post like I've got 40 years clean? You know,
That's a
like,
good point.
Why are we celebrating something that you should have been doing anyways?
That's exactly right.
I'm not big. I don't talk. I just don't want to live in my past too much. I want to extract the lessons that I've taken from my past. I talk about it to let people know that we're not superhuman. You know, Kel could say, yeah, I've had a kid at this age. No, he's not superhuman. He just put in a lot of fucking work to get where we're at. No, I'm not superhuman. You know, I have vices and have had issues just like anybody else. But I think life is fucking hard for everybody across the board. Life does not discriminate difficulties based upon anybody. And I think that addicts choose to run back to something to at least have something to blame their problems on. Right?
That was good.
That's removing themselves of accountability. Like, look, dude, I'm a drug addict. Like, dude. So now they're just labeling themselves as an addict, which releases them of a bunch of responsibilities. You know, so it makes you feel good because your only problem is you're an addict. Because if you weren't, you'd have everything figured out, right?
You're
bullshit. You're a victim of
addiction.
Being an addict. No, that's bullshit. You're a victim of not wanting to really deal with issues head on. So you use a vice to go back to then blame the fact that you can't do shit yourself on that. You know, that's the reality of the scenario, because there's many times I'm sure with inside your sobriety that you would have loved to go back to it, but you had to deal with the shit head on. And you could have easily removed yourself from the scenario, went back to something negative, and then not even thought about the problem that you need to deal with head on for a minute, you know? And so it's just a, you know, I honestly think it's a kind of a get out of jail free card of life, right? Like, I don't have to deal with life. I'm an addict. Right. You know, as long as I deal with my addiction, that's the only problem I have to worry about, you know?
Yeah, dude. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I really do. I talk, it's like I said before, you know, it's so ironic. This comes up literally just about every phone call. And 95% of the time I have absolutely no idea. But yeah, I was on a phone call with a lady who she's she's the host of her talk show, and I didn't really speak out. I haven't been very vocal until just recently about how I feel, you know, about AA, and AA served its purpose for me when I first got sober. But when I started to understand the mind and the subconscious mind and the things that we say to ourselves and the labels, as you said before, that we put on ourselves, I started to realize if I if I stand up, if I go to a meeting, if I were to go to a meeting 3 days a week and I stand up and say that I am an alcoholic, that's reinforcing that I'm fucked up and that I'm broken and that there's a really good chance that I'm not ever going to be anything different than that.
Yeah.
And so I choose to say I just don't drink.
Identify as something. Why would you identify that forever?
You shouldn't. That's the point. You shouldn't, because
move
if
the fuck on, move on.
Right. Exactly.
Like, you know, I mean, I never went to NA or AA. I never did. And I'm not against it, because I know some people that it's truly helped. Everybody deals with life differently, right? Like, some people on Sunday go to church. Some people, they go to the lake. Some people golf on Sunday. Like, everybody deals with their downtime in life in general to de-stress different. Everybody deals with becoming a recovering addict differently.
Sure.
You know, I went up into the mountains and shook myself sober, right? And got clean that way, sitting in a trailer. Some people go to jail and get clean, and then some people use AA or NA or whatever it is. But I'm not a huge fan of the lifetime AA or NA, because it's, one, you're remaining to stick around people that are still struggling using, which is not good for an addict that's been clean for 5 years, that maybe has a weak point, that some kid that's new into AA or NA or whatever has relapses. You're too close to drugs or too close to using in that. I think that's a great system to utilize, but there should be a transition phase out of it into normal life, to where you're no longer, you know, Corey the drunk or the alcoholic, right? You're just Corey now. Like, you're right. A great human being, you know, that's out and about trying to make his way through life, not Corey the alcoholic.
Right.
You know, now you may be Corey the addict. You need to choose to be what addicted to, whether it's fitness, whether it's golf, whether it's business, whether it's, you know, everybody again has their own little vices and addictions, but it's up to us to find something positive to be addicted to rather than something negative. But I don't want to be associated with my past forever.
No.
Say, Trevor, the drug addict, you know, yeah, that's this big of my life.
Right.
So why the fuck would I talk about it for 30 or 40 years?
It wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah. That's just not me. So it might work for a lot of people. It might upset people. That's fine. Again, I'm only talking from my experience. I've never used it. I've been fine and been clean and never relapsed and never went to one NA meeting or AA meeting. So I can't say that it does good or bad. I know that it does good for some people. I know some people try it and it doesn't work for them. I think it really just depends on the mindset of the individual. So
we started a group that's going to be virtually, obviously, because, you know, but an outlet for people to go to with the same mindset as you and I, that is recovery, but it's not, it's really trying to help people to understand where their mind can go and how powerful it is, and help people open up to their consciousness and not identify themselves as whatever, fill in the fucking blank.
Something negative.
Yeah, for sure.
Why would you? Yeah, I don't understand it, but I agree with you in that regard.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, look, I guess it's probably getting close to time for us to wrap up. Guys, I really appreciate the hell out of that. How do you want me to get you this guy's information? Do you want to call him? You want him to call you? How do you want me to do it? With the cannabis stuff.
It's probably fine.
Yeah, I'll DM you.
Okay.
And then we'll contact that way, and then maybe we'll just do like a Facebook intro or drop his information. However you want to do it, you know, we'll figure it out on DM though, for sure.
All right, cool.
Yeah, we appreciate you thinking of us for that though, bro.
Dude,
I appreciate you having us on as well, man, on your show.
Thank you for giving me the time that you did. I really appreciate it more than you know.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome. It's been incredible. Yeah. So
you look like fucking Marky Mark. I'm sure I know you get that shit all the fucking time.
I've heard it a time or two. Yeah, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I have like kind of reddish hair, you know.
Yeah.
And we're down in Huntington Beach one time, and this drunk dude walks up and he's all, "You look like Marky Mark," and he looks over at me. He's like, "You look like his brother Donnie."
Yeah.
Red hair and shit.
Oh, does it? I didn't know that.
It was so funny. I don't look like Donnie, but it was just a funny moment because Trevor looks so much like Marky, and he's hanging out with this redheaded dude next to him.
Yeah, dude, that's funny, dude. As soon as we got on, I'm like, Jesus Christ, he looks just like him. Anyway, I'm sure you get that shit a lot. But all right, guys. Well, thanks again. And if I can do anything for you, by all means, reach out, and I'll connect with you guys about my boy Callie. All right.
Absolutely, brother. Appreciate you. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you. Later,
All
guys.
right, brother.